You get booed and whatnot, and even if you know what you love, there's no guarantee that anyone will ever pay you to do it. I think that's one of the roughest places in the world to be. So they showed me all of their movies, and none of them made sense to me. I told them that Kevin Cosner's Big Break in The Big Chill taught him that even setbacks could lead to unexpected opportunities. You know, when people ask you, what was your big break? What was your big break? It's clear to me that it happened when I got the job in The Big Chill. I'm not saying what happened, I'm just saying that it happened for me when I got the job and I was driving home on the freeway. He promised himself that he would always make meaningful work for his audience, no matter what challenges he faced. I'm like, you know that pool where you can stand on your toes to catch your breath? That's what I'm doing. I'm just figuring out how to make three. Costner was determined because he believed in his future success. He knew that his moment would come, and not being in the movie didn't bother him. He said, I'm just there. I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to make these. I'm making them for an audience. And when I'm done, I'll feel like, okay, that was what I was supposed to do, and they live forever. Good or bad, they live forever. Outward success is something that everyone sees, but you have to know the times in your own life when something did happen and you said, no, this is when it happened for me. The journey of child actors often narrows down from thousands to just a few, showing how hard the business is. There are always child actors coming through, and this one starts with 1,000 little ones. I usually get to meet them when there are 3 little girls left. One of the things that makes this girl so charming is that there were 3 of them, so 2 hearts broke and 1 life changed. Right now, Jillian's life is changing because she's having a good time with that. When Kevin first came to Hollywood, he felt like an outsider eager to learn about a world he didn't know much about. When I came to Hollywood, I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that it was a place where you could hang out. I drove in from Orange County and parked my car next to a phone booth at Sunset. I slept in a small camper shell because I didn't know anyone else, and I waited for the phone to ring. It was a payphone, and I knew one person in Hollywood who I would call once a week so as not to bother them. If you think about it, I graduated from college and was waiting in a fetal position in my car for Wednesday to call because I thought I should call in the middle of the week to avoid blowing my one phone. I didn't get my first job right away. I had to go into state stage acting as a stage manager because I didn't think I was smart enough to be a bartender because I couldn't make change. I hated it when they gave me dollar plus 8 cents, so I decided to take out trash as long as it was movie trash, and that's how I got started. I was a stage manager for commercials and really low budget movies. I was really happy though because that's how you know you're on the right track. I was making $3. 50 of my college graduates were thinking the same thing. I remember when they said 40,000 to 60,000 company car, and I thought, man, I have an interview in a month, and I'm excited, and that's all that mattered. That's all that it did. Additionally, there was no guarantee that anyone would ever pay you anything to do what you love. I remember yelling out loud at that point, and Michael jerked because he was the main actor and getting paid a lot of money. He turned and looked at me and asked, when we do this again, would you do that again? It's funny I'm working as an actor. I mean, I was over in London and I see Ronnie Howard. Now we'll talk about things, but just little small beginnings growing up witnessing his. He built his career on his father's advice to outwork everyone. My parents and his family lived through the Dust Bowl in Oklahoma, which was a depressing time in their lives. My dad had only one job his whole life. And he told me, Kevin, don't let anyone outwork you. Don't ever let anyone outwork you. That wasn't exactly artistic advice from my dad, he just said. If you don't let another man outwork you, he'll never take your. That's how my family raised me. I think they finally saw that I wasn't doing well in school and that I liked telling stories and being funny, so they just told me to go with God. I think the worst thing for a parent is when they don't know how to help their child. All dads want to help their sons and moms, but when they don't know exactly what to do, they just stand up and make fun of you. I think that's one of the worst places in the world. Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, and Guys Come Out of the Corn were all small movies that no one was sure were going to work. That's how it was, and Black or White was the same thing. When I finally found out it wasn't going to be made, I had to walk down the hall and tell my wife that I thought we should pay for it. She said, "Really? Did you hear a voice in a cornfield? Why is Kevin? I mean, really, why can't the voice talk to?" I told her that I thought we should pay for the movie. And she, being a good partner, looked at me and said, "Well, if that's what you think, then you're going to make Black or White." I do think Black or White will stand the test of time. I think it has a chance to be a classic. When movies are at their best, they always say something that you might never forget. And I think there are some moments like that in Black or White. I'm not going to make it because when I was trying and when I was learning, it was Timothy. I think I'm not getting past these guys: Hutton, Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, Nicolas Cage, Chopin, and others. Costner's determination to see scripts that others turned down ultimately led to important roles and opportunities. He said, "Look, I want to see every script these guys turn down because I think I know good writing. What are they turning down? Let me take a look at this stuff." And that honestly led to a big break in my life. Not that I was able to take advantage of it at the time, but when suddenly, things got interesting. Orion Pictures called me and said, "Hey, we'd like to make movies with you." They showed me all of their movies, but none of them made sense to me. I told him that, and he said, "Well, there's anything you want to do." I thought back to when I was reading scripts and saw a good one. I remember a movie I liked, and I said it was called Finish with Engines. I said I'd do this movie, and they said I would, but Warner Brothers took the movie and made it, but they changed the title to No Way Out. That's how everyone will judge your life, or mine. I'm on the freeway. I don't care what happens. I know I'm in the right room with the right guy, with the right people. And I knew it was on not when the movie came out, but when I left the audition and had the part. That's exactly right. And Wally N was a casting director with a strong will who helped me with Lawrence Camden. But people only look at the obvious, and if you want to say when, it was at that moment, or rather those two moments, that I decided I wasn't going to worry about what other people thought about me or let my parents worry about me. That was the moment, and getting the big chill and driving home were the two most important events in my life. I loved writing it, and when it came to me, no one else had thought of it. I knew it was great writing, and I believed so much in it that I wanted to publish it. Take people on that ride, and I went over and sold it overseas. I think Taylor's good writing was based on the belief that his dedication to Yellowstone shows how passion and persistence can keep a show at the top of popular culture. So I tried to keep it that way, and I did. One season turned into 5, and then I wanted to work more than once a year, so I kept Horizon or Yellowstone in first place. But it had to stay on track and have a set amount of time so I could go ahead. I wanted to do more than one thing a year, and those other things had to be firm for me to be able to do something like Horizon, where I have 200 or 300 people waiting for me, and I can't let myself break the promises I made to those people. So the idea that I just wanted to do more than one thing a year came to an end 5 years later, when I realized I had to stop to make sure that could happen. No, I just decided that while I was doing press for Horizon, what are you going to do? But since nothing seemed to be moving, I decided to take away the mystery. Until something is clear to me, I'm going to let people who are interested in the kinds of movies I want to be in know that I'm not going to do this. It's like the first 100 pages of a book where everything just clicks into place. That's what happens when two, and with two, there's no magic pill the West was. I worked on the show for 5 years, and it gets harder for these people. I guess I could do it again if the planets lined up, which means to storyline the scripts, and then I want to work more than once a year. And to do that, I have to set aside time for things. And when that couldn't happen, that couldn't work for me anymore. Costner loves the show, but he knows that any future projects must be approached with a fresh perspective. I love the show, but I wouldn't sell it to them before it was a show. Taylor wrote a beautiful script, and I went overseas. 300 people asked me what the show was about, and I said, I don't know, I think it could be good. They then asked, are you going to be in it? I said, I'll be in it for 3 years, but then I'm not sure. So I said, I love the show, I supported it for 5 years, and I'd like to go, but it has to be under a different set of circumstances. I don't know what happens to it. But I never say, oh, well, here's my leverage, the show isn't good without me. I didn't believe that for a second. I believe it would be different. I have worked hard for this show and will continue to do so. We talked about what was important to us, and it doesn't look like we can meet based on what's important to us both. Listen, to be fair to the other situation, they're doing 4 or 5 other shows and he's writing them. So that's what he does. But my whole life has been about how I'm going to stand tall even in. I was selling Open Range, but it played on one of the back streets, and I didn't even watch it. I started to wander around, and I started to feel this thing that happens here. Someone asked me if I wanted to go see a movie, and I said, of course. He says he wants to return to certain roles with a clear vision of what he wants to achieve creatively. And I think it was the second Matrix, but I went up and walking down the red carpet and taking a look around. I knew I wanted to come back to this place, but I wanted to do it in a very specific way. When I feel like I've written something that I can stand behind and say, if you have problems with the film, bring them to me because they were my decisions. That's what happened. And I knew I was going to make these films, and I almost knew I was going to do it on my own. I had the idea that if I made these films, I'd bring the first one to KHF. As an independent filmmaker, having the biggest platform in the world here is huge. I can't tell you what it does for me or what it does for this film, but it's important. This is an important moment for me, and I'm here to celebrate movies, which I think brings us all together. Many people measure their success by how successful they seem to others. They think they aren't successful unless they have a part, a big part, or are a lead. Let me see your resume. I didn't measure my life that way at all. I knew my life would change when I got the big chill. I knew it would change while driving down the freeway. I knew it would change because I was with the right people and in the right field after being cut from a movie. Kevin, as part of his artistic journey, thinking about how life's twists and turns are inevitable. Of course, when I got cut out of the movie, I just accepted it as part of the mythology of whatever my life would be, he said. What was supposed to happen had already happened. You're waiting for the movie to come out. You're waiting for the movie to premiere. I knew how it had started 9 months earlier. I was on the yellow brick road. I was there. It was complicated. People from Europe came there to settle, they were told. They didn't have those things here because they lived under a monarchy and a king, and so did their children. But if you could cross that ocean and get to a place that looked like the Garden of Eden, that place didn't even have a name at that point. If you were mean, tough, and resourceful enough, you could be a king and take what you wanted and keep it for your family. That was the message and the promise. But there was a catch. The civilization that had been there for 15,000 years was wiped out by us. Our story can't be told without mentioning that. But what I love about the West is that there was great drama there that we'll never experience. People think Westerners are simple, but living now is simple. It's amazing that we still can't get along. We think the West was violent, but look at what's going on in the world. What I love about the West is that drama could happen over and over again. Supervising a stranger meant you had to be very resourceful for him. The art of filmmaking is telling interesting stories that entertain and connect with audiences instead of just teaching them. So when I'm making the structure of a movie for you to watch in the dark, I have to find a story that I think is entertaining because that's what our connection is about, entertaining each other, not teaching them. It's not my job to reinvent the Western or recreate history. I think our connection is about. That's what Europe gave me the chance to stand up for what I think is important, interesting, and fun. I used to think that movies were only for Americans because I grew up with nothing but my family from Oklahoma. It was America. Even when I finally made a movie, it was shelved. It wasn't until I went to the Venice Film Festival 35 or 40 years ago that a movie I was very proud of got a seat 3 years later. Later was playing and someone said they wanted to interview me. I was in Silverado and the whole cast was being interviewed. It was my first big role, but no one wanted to interview me. Finally, I had one interview in 2 days, and while I was there, a guy came in and said, "You have to come with me right now. Your movie is playing Fandango." I told him, "No, I'm doing Silverado. You got that wrong. It's not so as Fandango, it says Silverado." He confirmed that it was actually Fandango. I thought, but this is my interview, so I went with him. As I walked down the street, I didn't know I was walking into a theater that was full. People were sitting in the aisles and upstairs. I was in the last 6 minutes of the movie and thought something was going on. When the movie ended, I couldn't believe the theater was so full. People were standing and cheering, and the lights came on. I thought, wow, this is crazy. I'd also lost my luggage, so I was wearing the same clothes for the whole time. 3 days later, I was only wearing a t-shirt when someone said, "I'm thinking, Natalin, that Kevin's in this room." The lights came on, and everyone turned, looked up, and clapped for me. I couldn't believe it was so big. When we left the theater and walked down the street in Massachusetts, 800 of us, I thought, my God, what just happened? But something did happen to me, and I realized that movies weren't just for Americans.